Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax, and today, do you feel valid? There's this weird saying or propaganda that has been taught to my generation, particularly, and it's this idea of being valid. You are valid. And we're told that, like, gay people are valid, trans people are valid, your trauma is valid. Um, But there's a real underlying problem with this whole idea of validation and self validation. And it comes from just asking the question. So, a lot of the time, even in just basic conversation, I'll be talking with my friends and, a girlfriend, and she'll say, "Oh, it's just such a hard day." And I'm like, "You're so valid for that." Um, but this whole idea of validation comes from this like bad place, essentially, is what I'm trying to get at. Um, so, first of all, we need to talk about what is valid. So, when you validate something, you make it real, you give it a justification, you give it this approval, essentially, when you're saying, oh, this is valid or that's valid, your feelings are valid. You're trying to give justification for something, whether it's what you're feeling, whether it's who you are, your personality, a situation that happened to you. Oh, that was valid. Yeah, like, of course you're upset. Like, that's so valid of you. Um, the problem with this whole way of seeing the world and seeing yourself is that when you ask or when you validate something, you're implying that it might not be valid. You're giving it a cause to. You're kind of undermining yourself from the beginning. And I've been reading several different books and things like that, and this idea of like self-validation has come up several times, and I've come to realize that that's a really corruptive and it's a really bad influence on seeing yourself, on identifying who you are, and those kinds of things. And so what I mean by this is, how can I explain this succinctly? If you are told from a young age that, oh, you're valid, you're okay, that kind of makes you think about the opposite of that and being not okay and something that is invalid. Your existence happens whether you like it or not, whether somebody approves of it or not. And so by approving or validating yourself or something else, you're actually giving cause to the opposite side. You're making yourself think about the other option or the other possibility. And it's a really self-destructive form of motivation. And that's really what I'm getting at, is this whole idea of like, you're valid. When you use that as the hierarchy that you see yourself in, when you use that as the mode of self-improvement or how well you're doing in life, it really leads to a lot of insecurity, because you are going to exist whether you like it or not, whether you are valid or not. And this scale that we've created for ourselves and for other people really just leads to this constant need to keep yourself valid, to keep yourself okay. This might be a bit of a deep one today, but I'm really big into self-improvement and constantly encountering new ideas, constantly trying to better myself. And I'm kind of wondering, where's that come from? Why do I have this constant need to analyze what I'm doing and what I'm thinking and how I'm interacting, and constantly streamline and innovate and create better? And while I think, that's good in itself, what is the root cause of that? And I've come to the conclusion that the root cause of that is actually not good. The root cause of why I do what I do is not based on some genuine reach of trying to be better. It's based on this idea of, I need to continue to be valid. I need to continue to, you know, self improve. I cannot let myself slip down the ladder. And those of you that know me know that I'm a Taoist and that I practice a form of philosophy and religion that revolves around the universe just exists and you've got to live it and deal with it as long as you're here. And you can't fundamentally change the universe. You can make an impact, you can change your community, you can be a positive person. But The universe is going to keep on existing. It was here before you came. It will be here long after you're gone. And so when you apply this validation methodology, or this idea of, oh, I need to be valid, I need to constantly be getting better. Well, why? Why exactly are you doing that? And it comes down to this perpetual need to see yourself as a good person. And that's really kind of toxic. It's not actually a very good motivation. I think we're taught in the West that, we need to constantly be striving to do better, earn more money, be a better person, be a better friend, all of these things. But the root cause of it is sort of a superficial appearance, and it's the need to feel validated. It's the need to feel like you matter, you are important, you are real, you are valid. And it's actually a really corruptive force, because if that's your genuine motivation, it's not like an altruistic, I just want to be who I naturally should be. If that was your motivation, that you just want to be authentically yourself, it's not, oh, I need to take up, chess because attractive people play chess. Your motivation is simply, I want to be authentically me. I want to be authentically Jax. What does that mean? That motivation of being the truest self is far more positive compared to the need to be valid, the need to look good, the need to feel like people accept you. And the book I'm reading recently, a father is talking to his son about a summer camp that the boy went to, and the boy goes to this summer camp, and he's sort of made to feel inferior by the camp supervisors. And it's not until that the boys in this summer camp prove themselves, they catch a fish, they go canoeing, they're good at woodworking. It's not until they prove themselves that they start going up the ranks and becoming valid. They become this kind of Superman, you guys come as men, or you come as boys and you leave as men. That's the idea of this summer camp. And so the boy is telling the father about this summer camp, and the father's horrified. The father is just thinking, oh my gosh, they have indoctrinated my child into believing that he's not good enough and that he constantly needs to strive to be better. And he notices this corruption through the next year of his son's life, and how insecure the boy is, and how he's constantly trying to prove himself. Like, I'm a man, I can prove myself. And this is a very normal quality in our society. There's expectations placed on boys and girls to grow up a specific way, to be a man, to, be a true woman. And both of those things entail specific behaviors. And if you break them, if you don't follow what these behaviors are, you are no longer valid. You are no longer following the normal order, and you are ostracized, you are penalized, and it's not a good factor. And that might control people. And, if that's your goal, great, then you've done it. But at what cost have you done that? And you need to realize that, again, the universe is infinite. There is no stopping the direction of the universe. It is impossible to uphold a permanent standard like that. It is not possible for any human being ever who lived, no matter how amazing they were, to have constantly upheld the perfect standard. And that is the problem that comes with this whole idea of validation and self-validation. Because, no matter how hard the boy tries, he will always let people down. He will always miss the mark, no matter what. You might knock it out of the park today, but tomorrow you screw up and you get a C on your math test. Suddenly you're no longer a man. Suddenly you've lost that validation, and now you're panicky, you're full of anxiety, you're worried that you're not good enough, and boom, it hits you. So the whole scale on which we use to judge people and ourselves, which is the real thing I want to get to, is inherently flawed. And if you see yourself only by the value that you bring to the table, only the validation you get from other people or yourself, you are going to constantly encounter situations where you aren't good enough, where your validation is in jeopardy. And what happens in those cases? Well, people burn out, People might try and overcome it this time, but what about next time? Again, the universe is infinite. You can't fight it. You're not going to win. You're not going to get out of here alive. Nobody does. So the idea that, oh, I need to be valid. It's a huge insecurity that is built into our society. And it's used to shape and manipulate and control and coerce people into doing a specific behavior. And we have seen a rejection of this through so many different areas of life in so many different ways throughout history. I mean, it's not just at this moment in time. We have more humans on this planet than ever before. So I think that's why we're seeing this like huge rejection of this idea. But you get it on both sides. You get it on every aspect of life. This idea that, what's your value? What are you bringing to life? What are you bringing to your family and friends? This sort of transaction-esque system of, well, you need to be bringing value or, there's no point of you being here. And some scholars and things will bring this up to the whole capitalist versus communist thing. I'm not really interested in that. Those are two systems that didn't exist, 20,000 years ago, but this system I'm talking about probably existed back then. And so, you can apply it to whatever political point you want to make. I'm not here to make a political point. I'm here just to talk about how this whole idea of being motivated just by the feeling of feeling valid is not a good motivation that you should have. And so now I'm going to quickly address how this affects yourself, because I think for many of us, particularly people that, listen to videos like this, we are our worst critic. It's not our dad, it's not our friends, it's not our neighbors who are giving us the hardest time. It's ourselves. It's that internal monologue saying, you're not good enough. What are you doing? Work harder. You were lazy yesterday. You're not going to be lazy today. And it's this exact system that I'm talking about this sort of self-motivated, self-interested belief that is really hampering us. Some people might say, well, it's a good motivator, it might cause like anxiety and, feeling of worthlessness, but, it keeps me going. It gets me up in the day, all of this stuff. But that's despite the fact that there is another form of motivation that I think is more powerful than this whole validation idea. And that's being your authentic self. If I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror in the bathroom and I'm feeling really tired and groggy and I'm saying, oh, you piece of garbage, you need to go to the gym because you need to look good, you need to keep healthy, you need to do all these things, like you need to constantly improve yourself. How long can I sustain that? How long until that voice that tells me I'm not good enough wins and I decide, you know what, I'm not going to go today, whatever. Like I will hate myself, but I can't keep it up. Rather than just saying to yourself, you know what, my name is Jax and Jax likes going to the gym. I enjoy this. This is a process. I do it for myself because I like it. I'm not doing it to look good. I'm not doing it to do these things. I'm doing it because it is who I am and I appreciate that about myself. Suddenly, you have created a motivation that is 100% positive. It doesn't come with a negative connotation. It doesn't come with this emotional baggage or this feeling of, oh, I need to validate myself, because that's a really self-centered and narcissistic approach, but it's also a really toxic approach because you're just thinking about other people as well. So it's like, it's really narcissistic in one way and it's super beholden to what other people think of you in another. So it's this weird dichotomy where it's like, it's both of these bad things at the same time. And so this is kind of what I'm going to try out for the next little while. Instead of being motivated by what I should do in order to keep valid and to keep myself feeling good about myself, I'm going to do things because that's who I am. And hopefully these things align close enough to what I've been doing in my life that there really won't be a big change in how I act, but there'll be a big change in my head, in the way that I see myself. Because rather than beating myself up and intimidating myself to do things, it's going to come from a place of, you know what, this is who you are and you like who you are. That's the biggest part, is you really can't attempt doing something like this if you don't like who you are. If you don't have the slightest amount of self-care and self-love. I know we talk about this subject and it's sort of, it gets very political, but if you genuinely like yourself even a little bit and you want to be authentically who you are, I think this motivation is far more positive than this idea of I need to feel validated. I need to be validated by my society or by my whatever. That is not the motivation you want to bring into this. This is my hypothesis. Who knows? Maybe in five months I go absolutely insane and this motivation doesn't work. But maybe that's who I was supposed to be. So I guess we'll find out. But I just think that you shouldn't struggle with the idea of feeling self-validation. You shouldn't feel as though you're constantly trying to prove something to yourself or to other people. Because if you are constantly trying to prove that kind of stuff, you are going to let yourself down and you're going to let other people down because that is the nature of life. Nobody is perfect all the time. We all get sick. We all have stumbling blocks. We all do these things. And if you can see it as just being authentically you, doing your best, and if that's not good enough today, okay, you were still you, and that was fine. That is all you need in life. I think that's a far healthier mindset than this idea of I need to feel validated. I need people to tell me I'm pretty. No, I am who I am, and who I am is pretty. That becomes an unshakable truth in who you are. And maybe it leads to some sort of like egomaniacal personality, but we're going to find out, I guess. So I'm really interested in your thoughts on this. This is a very introspective concept and idea, and I'd love to know your thoughts on it, especially if you are older than I am, because obviously I've only experienced a short amount of life, and I've come to this conclusion at 27, and who knows, maybe you are 57 and have some like really important insights that I need to hear. And if you need to talk me down, please do. So thank you so much. I hope this has given you pause for thought. I think it's a very thoughtful, invoking idea. Hopefully it's positive. Hopefully it's not something that causes any negativity or discomfort. I certainly don't mean it to be. So thank you so much for listening, and let me know what you think. And as always, guys, I will talk to you tomorrow.